Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody and welcome. You have tuned in to episode number 577 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. And this is our short topics episode, so thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate that. And we hope you have a good time listening us to, night or today or wherever it is you happen to be when you're listening to the show. And with that, we should probably get into things. But before we do, we always introduce ourselves. And for the On Assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, straightforward to the point. And I guess since we already taxed my mental powers for today, have determined that I am reading the first story for tonight in the amateur radio section of our podcast. So I guess I will just dive right into it. And our first story is the ORI, the Open Research Institute, seeks rule change on the 219 megahertz amateur radio band. The ORI has filed the first of what might be several comments and proposed rule-making efforts to the FCC about reforming amateur radio use of the 219 megahertz band. To be honest, I didn't know there was a 219 megahertz band.
It's a 220 band. It's been around forever.
Well, yeah, you call it 220, and suddenly it's a little more like, oh yeah, I know what 220 is. Sure. What is that again? What is that
23 centimeters.
It is 23 centimeters. Okay. Yeah.
Or no.
It's 1.2.
It's like 1 point. It's one of the weird ones. Shoot. I'm going to totally mess it up.
Somebody in the chat is going to
go. 23 is 900 megahertz, isn't it? Oh, geez. I'm going the wrong way or something. So it's 2 meters. It's like 1.25 meters or something stupid like that.
1.25. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's something stupid like that.
Well, fine. All right. Well, we both know where we're at mentally, so.
Yeah. It's the weekend. Come on,
The weekend, but not the weekender. That's next week.
That's right, yeah.
Anyway, so they, i.e. the ORI, says, we are not asking to change the fundamental nature of the band. Fixed digital messaging forwarding is super exciting these days because of SDRs, mesh networking, and all sorts of amazing protocol work available to us. We decided to simply ask for removal of the notification and permissions requirements. These requirements have resulted in zero use of this band for over 2 decades. The primary service back in the late 1990s, when these rules came out, was Maritime, AMTS. Those licenses were never fully deployed and have now been leased out by railroads. This means to us that the permission requirements now make no sense at all for secondary licensees. The ORI is tired of this and is working to make the situation better. This is a great band with huge, innovative digital promise. We deserve to have a seat at this table, and that means the chair has to actually exist, and the door to the room the table is located within has to actually be something we can open. Well, they just went straight into metaphor there at the end, but okay, fine.
What is up with that?
Yeah, and this wasn't even an AI rewrite. I will tell you that the next story is, however, so have fun with it. No, I proofread it. It's fine. But anyway, that came directly from the mouth of the ORI, and there's also going to be a link in the show notes to the FCC filing as well. So if you're interested in the 1.2 whatever centimeter band, because as they said, no one's used it for 2 decades. So I don't know how interested anyone can be, but I guess we'll find out if something actually happens here and we find more trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt that, but I mean, I know people have 220 repeaters and stuff like that because they're normally in the 222 to 225 range or something like that. And I think the area she's talking about, or ORI, is the 219 to 220, which is like, I think it's just reserved for like fixed digital messages or something stupid like that. So that's probably why it has like a weird classification to begin with. But anyway, if we can use it and not have to ask permission or don't want to change or want to change whatever we want to do there, that would be fine. I don't know why there's still a gap between 220 and 222 that are not used, but maybe somebody can answer that in the chat room or feedback.
It's probably commercially licensed already or something. Now, if they're gonna be filing for this kind of thing, I think they should push for dechannelizing 60 meters too. That would be great.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. Because I actually like 60 meters quite a lot, but the channelization is kind of a pain in the butt. And it's actually a real pain in the butt when you're using the Yaesu FT710 because it doesn't use, I forget which way it goes. It's not like it doesn't use the center channel frequency, or it does, depending. Like you have to set it on the center channel frequency even when you're USB, or it has to be like 0.7 off. I can't remember what. It's like if you don't set it right, it doesn't transmit. So it's crazy.
Yes. Yeah, I have the same problem with the FT450D. It's kind of weird in 60 meters. I just don't even use it for 60 meters.
Yeah,
it uses the memory channels or something like that. You can't even tune and transmit in it. You have to be one of the memory channels, which is just weird.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's the same thing like that. And like I just like switch over to the IC7100 and let WSJTX or JTDX figure it out for me. Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, same here. Nice. Anyway, the next story is another FCC story. The FCC proposes shakeup of amateur radio licensing. The FCC is considering a major overhaul of the rules governing amateur radio licensing in the United States. The proposed changes, detailed in a recent document, that sounds suspicious, could significantly alter how licenses are obtained, structured, and managed. Currently, the FCC issues 5 types of amateur radio licenses: novice, technician, general, advanced, and amateur extra. Actually, they do not issue advanced licenses anymore, so this is a lie. AI sucks. The FCC, and they don't think they do novice licenses either. The FCC is proposing to streamline the system, replacing the 5 classes with just 2, basic and full. Are you sure this is even real?
It is mostly factual, yes.
Okay, this is just it looks so sus. Okay, so the basic would go up to your general privileges.
I literally fed it. I fed the AI the proposal. So
okay, interesting. Yeah, so the basic would cover all the way up to general licenses. The full would cover your advanced and extra class licenses. So almost like your Brit or something like that. The FCC argues that the current system's incentive structure has weakened over time, and a simpler 2-tier system would be more efficient and better aligned with international licensing practices. That's probably true. The FCC also proposes shifting some administrative responsibilities to a designated amateur radio administrator, an ARA. This organization, rather than the FCC itself, would select call signs for amateur radio stations and grant, modify, and renew amateur radio station licenses. Currently, these tasks are handled by the FCC Universal Licensing System, the ULS. The change aims to streamline the licensing process and allow for more agile responses to the evolving needs of the amateur radio. Another key proposal involves simplifying the rules governing frequency and emission authorizations. The self-management approach is intended to align with international practices and empower the ARA to adapt to changes in how amateurs use the radio spectrum. If adopted, these changes would bring about a fundamental shift in how amateur radio is regulated in the U.S. The FCC is expected to seek public comment on these proposed rule changes. Amateur radio operators and other interested parties will have an opportunity to voice their opinions and concerns before any final decisions are made. And this came from AI looking at the FCC proposal. So is this like possibly the future of the ARRL is they'll actually have a purpose?
I don't think AI was willing to speculate on that.
This is their exit plan. Is like, oh, we'll just basically be a federal, entity, a commission, a new commission. That's all we need. Another commission, right? We can shut it down later.
We do have a comment in the chat from Nate WY0X on the last topic. He says he listened to a podcast where they interviewed the ORI, and they wanted to do a higher speed point-to-point data network allowed on 220, but ran into the impossibility of even reaching an existing commercial user to ask for permission. They'd mapped out where it's actually used by railroads, and it's negligible, but no railroad even bothers to reply. Yeah, because most railroad stuff's in like the 160s, 160 somewhere. Removing the permission slip 80s requirement make use of the spectrum back to normal for secondary users, just like we are on UHF and 900. Anywho, haven't found the YouTube link. Oh, well. So there you go.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard about this, but it is interesting nonetheless.
All right. Well, unfortunately, and I think we've been saying this far too often lately, but the world of open source and amateur radio is a desert of information right now. It's just
to start that Windows podcast. Okay.
Yeah, maybe so. All right. But those are the two amateur radio topics we had for tonight. So let's move into some open source. And the first one we have is a fresh take on virtual swap space is being pursued for the Linux kernel. A request for comments, RFC, patch series sent out this week over the Linux for the Linux kernel is working on the notion of virtual swap space support. The notion of virtual swap space, or VS, has been talked about for years, and even going back to 2011, there have been efforts to redesign the kernel's swap cache along similar lines. This latest work on virtual swap space for Linux was posted by open source developers NotFom and is currently deemed a prototype implementation. With this new code, the focus is on decoupling ZSwap from the backing swap file, as well as simplifying and optimizing swap-off behavior. Additionally, this code could help out for scenarios around multi-tier swapping, swap file compaction, and other functionality. NotFom explains of this work on virtual swap space for Linux. Quote, this RFC implements the virtual swap space idea based on Yosri's proposals at LSFMMBPF 2023. Should I try it? No.
Sounds like Cloudy with a chance at meatballs.
Right. I have no idea what that even is, but okay. It was a conference or something a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
As well as valuable inputs from Johannes Weiner. The same idea with different implementation details has been floated by Rick Van Riel since at least 2011. The code attached to this RFC is purely a prototype. It is not 100% merge ready. I do, however, want to show people this prototype RFC, including all the bells and whistles and a couple of actual use cases so that folks can see what the end results will look like and give me early feedback. End quote. Those wanting to learn more about this prototype work on virtual swap space for Linux can see the RFC patch series for all the details. And that came from Phoronix, and a link to the RFC and the patch series and like the Usenet postings and all that stuff are all linked therein if you want to learn more about virtual swap space in Linux. Another thing I just heard about today. Even though it's been around for 20 years. So, or not 20 years, but at least 15. So,
yeah, it's definitely not something like I remember, like we used to have to, set up the swap space manually and everything else on, the actual physical swap space. Now we don't have to even do that or even think about that. It's all done automatically for us. And this is like another one of these things that's like, what is this? Do we have to worry about this?
If you have enough memory in the system, I believe it sort of like auto creates a swap partition in memory at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd be interested to look deeper into the topic and see what they're proposing here, because I really don't know that much about it. So, but it is a thing that exists and is being RFC'd.
Interesting. Well, as long as it's written in Rust, it'll be fine, I'm sure.
How much of the Linux kernel is written in Rust? I think none. So,
modules. There's starting to be modules. So, anyway, the next story is about apt. And apt is 3.0 is unveiled. Exciting new features and a revamped CLI for Debian package management. How about that? The Debian project has unveiled the apt 3.0, a significant upgrade to its command line interface for package management. This new release introduces a redesigned user interface that enhances functionality and usability. Users can expect a cleaner columnar output, making it simpler to navigate and search for package names. Key features of apt 3.0 include color support for command outputs, reds for removals, and green for other updates, and a more visually pleasing progress bar that employs Unicode blocks. Sounds like DNF. Anyway, the revamped interface has been designed to be less verbose. It includes additional padding to help segregate sections and allows users to glean relevant information easily. Notably, it also introduces a new solver option that improves the handling of package versions and makes the auto remove function more effective. Maybe perhaps actually just running the auto remove instead of making us run it ourselves, retaining only the most essential automatically installed packages. Beyond the aesthetic improvements, apt 3.0 supports several new functionalities, a -- target - release options in the apt space list, a -- comment feature for historical records, uncompressed indexes from a partial file, mirrors, and automatic pagination similar to Git commands. Other enhancements support Debian ports modernization, better kernel size calculations, a transition to OpenSSL for improved security, and updated documentation and translations. apt 3.0 will be integrated as the default CLI in the upcoming Debian GNU Linux 13 Trixie release, scheduled for launch in the mid-2025 timeframe. And it will also feature in Ubuntu 25.04. Let's see, expected to be released later this April. For further details regarding the changes in this major release, visit the release announcement page, where you can also find source package for compilation on your Debian-based system. So does this mean like apt-get is gone and everything else we're going to actually use apt by itself that's been around for a while?
I think in most modern Debian variants, apt-get has been gone for some time. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. I mean, I don't use Debian, so
it might be in there for like historicity's sake, but I mean, if you're not using apt and haven't been for a while, you should be.
Right, because apt requires you, when you do like wildcard stuff, you have to use like regular expression, don't you?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. Okay, cool. I'm with it.
You're hip to it. All right.
Hip to it. And that came from Color Crossing, and additional info is linked in the show notes for Debian.
Yep, for the actual apt 3.0 system, and where you can download it and build it if you want to before it actually gets released. The package manager that needs to be built because it doesn't manage itself, I guess. So, well, it does once you install it, though. Anyway, so one more story in our open source segment, and that is Asahi Linux runs into issues, with M4 support. Due to Apple's silicon changes, the Asahi Linux project is at odds with adding support for the M4 chips. The Asahi Linux project was created to bring Linux to Mac hardware running Apple silicon. So far, things have been fairly smooth sailing for the project, except I couldn't get it to install on my M2. Whatever. However, with the M4 chips, things haven't gone exactly as planned. On Mastodon, Sven Peter had this to say, quote, "Looks like M4 support for Asahi Linux is going to be rather painful. We're still focusing on upstreaming M1, M2 support, but other people have been trying to bring up M1, N1 on M4, and it looks like a few things changed," end quote. What's changed? According to Peter, when configuring a macho boot object, macho
man. Oh, sorry.
Macho boot object, yeah. We now get dropped into an environment where Apple's SPTM, SPITM, is running in GL2, and we are supposed to talk to it from EL2 with MMU already enabled to set up page tables. Wow, that does sound painful. It's painful just to read it.
Yes.
This neither works for Linux nor for running XNU under our hypervisor to reverse engineer the new hardware. Because the project cannot run XNU, under the hypervisor used to reverse engineer the hardware, the project will have to fall back to reverse engineering and kernel auditing, or, as Peter brings up, hijacking XNU's exception handlers and page table code and patching the tracing in there. Yeah, I mean, I can see where this could cause some headaches, for sure. This roadblock is made for a serious challenge to getting Asahi Linux working with M4 chips. There's no timetable for when or if M4 will ever be supported.
I mean, is this just like a an excuse? Yeah, I mean, I know like the project lead left. Asahi. Would that possibly be also another reason why they're going to have a problem getting this going? Or, I don't
Well,
know.
they'll never tell you that in plain English, but
Yeah. We have something, the smoke in the mirrors to put out front. This is why we can't get it done. It's not that we have some internal issues going on here with the team in general, and obviously, and not like Apple's helping.
Yeah, exactly. I saw lots of things in there like, reverse engineering and things that sounded like cobbling together and blah, blah, blah. So, well, it'd be interesting to see where that goes. Obviously, I've been a little frustrated with Asahi even on older Apple Silicon. So, I mean, I guess no one should be holding their breath for M4 support anyway. But there you go. All right. Well, that brings us down to our last topic for the evening. And this is a late minute edition by you. So get it up.
Yeah, this is in our Linux in the Ham Shack segment. And I only put it in here because I think this might be an interesting device to play with in the Ham Shack. I do not have one. But now that I've kind of read up on it a little bit, I figured, I might as well talk about it. And, once I get over the tax paying bill blues, I might go pick me up one of these things. This is an OrangePi RV2. It's the new reference single board computer for a RISC-V enthusiasts. OrangePi is a fairly famous by now as an alternative manufacturer for Raspberry Pi-like mini computer boards, usually based on the ARM processors, but not only. Very recently, they announced the upcoming availability of a new board, the OrangePi RV2, based on a new RISC-V system on a chip, the KYX1, with 8 cores running at 1.6 gigahertz. The software support is great. This is from the author's perspective, not my words. You get an Ubuntu image that is crazy simple to get running. The one thing that is a potential issue is that you have to trust a third-party repo from Hawaii. And if you don't know who Hawaii is, go read the 5G thing and everything else. In any case, at this price point, this board is a no-brainer if you want to get into RISC-V. And yeah, this is kind of like sitting in that nice sweet spot there where the Raspberry Pi was, and people were picking them up like hotcakes. This is something to kind of look at. And I think the RISC architecture kind of has always been sort of dabbling outside of the normal realm for Linux people. It's more of a embedded thing and everything else. But I think, now that there's some availability for some hardware, we saw this one. I think there's also like a laptop that came out and a couple other devices that I think we've mentioned just briefly in passing on the show. It definitely looks like maybe something to get into. I think you can get a 2 gig unit from Amazon for like $44, and I think you can get a 4 gig memory unit for, I think it's like 66 with a power supply or something like that, but you probably just need the board. So $56 or something like that. So not too expensive, and something to play with. And hey, it already runs Ubuntu. It looks like the only sort of downsides are the fact that there's not really an integrated, GPU acceleration. So there was a few little pain points with rendering and whatnot, I think, in games and possibly any other kind of like video editing and video playback and stuff like that. You might run into some areas where you need to, either downscale or make some accommodations for the fact that there isn't at least a complete set of acceleration stuff for that platform yet. But this came from Boiling Steam was where I found the article, and they had some links to where I think they have the link to the OrangePi website, and then from there you can find, they have some AliExpress links, but with the new tariffs, in town, you might as well just order from Amazon, get it on Prime, and play with those units, even though they're probably still coming from China.
Yeah, and that actually sounds like the price points of roughly the Raspberry Pi 5 series, so I'm sure they're competitive with that, and I know there's a lot of development in the RISC space lately, so they should be at least as compatible as ARM architecture is, if not more so soon. So, and I'm sure all the distributions will be buildable for RISC here before too long, if they aren't already.
Yeah, Ubuntu is already there. Obviously, I think everybody else sort of falls in line. Or they have already shown Ubuntu the way.
Yeah, very good. Well, that does bring us down to the end of our topics for the evening. So we should move on to our announcements and feedback. And I actually didn't get a chance to peruse anything, but I didn't see anything come in. We did have a week off last week, so there probably isn't much. There was one like totally fakey comment over on YouTube, so we don't have to address that. And other than that, if there are any bits of feedback that come up, we'll certainly address them on the next episode for sure. But we'd also like to mention that we do if you can support us financially at all on the show. We do have links on the website for Patreon and PayPal. Links over to our merch, too, if you want to help us out and buy some merch. And make sure to subscribe over on YouTube. I know we keep saying that there will be additional content over there sometime, and hopefully there will be. But then we're down to our new subscriber supporters and live participants, and it's not a bad list for this time around. No new paid subscribers or Patreons. We do have a free Patreon, Ken. Nobody joined us over on Facebook. I don't know if that's a real thing or if Facebook has just stopped telling us if people, check us out on Facebook anymore, which is entirely possible. Over on Twitter, we have @MarkyMark. Nobody on Instagram. On Mastodon, we had a few at YO3GND, at Fragment, at Pokaya, at DK2RO, at Nusa, and at DL2EJF. Thanks, everybody, for joining us over there on Mastodon. Nobody this time around on YouTube. On Discord, we had DK4CN Matthias join us on Discord. Thanks for jumping into the chat. Several people follow us on Blue Sky now. Cat Daddy Tom, Russ, KB0WRO, Jose Afonso Guerra Asunsao, Chris, SP2KMO or M1KMO, the Skywarn Youth Ham Radio Group. That's kind of cool. At Captain Pike and at WI911. Oh, no, that's not what that is. I think it's at WI9LL. So, stupid font. Nobody joined us over on the mailing list. And in the live chat tonight, we had Nate, WY0X, Woody, KC1VOP, Steve, KJ5T, and Mike, K6GTE. Thanks, one and all, for joining us in the live chat. We appreciate that. And thanks, everybody who listens to the show, whether it be live or after the fact when the podcast is released. We really appreciate that. We wouldn't be here doing this if it weren't for all of you. And a particularly special thanks to all of our financial supporters that help keep the lights on and keep us doing what we do. And we look forward to seeing you all at Hamvention. If you happen to make it out that way, it's only a month away now, people. One little month. Crazy how time flies. But we'll be there, and we hope to see you in our new booths. K2BSA is, let's see, do you remember this right? It's 2205? Yep. Or no, 2105. No, that's right, 2205. Right, and we're in 2206. So if you find Bengali, you found us. So and you will find Bengali, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, can't miss it.
Yep. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and get on out of here, let you get back to whatever it was you were doing, and we will have a weekender next time around, so we hope you'll tune in for that in a week's time. And with that, we're out of here for episode number 577 of Linux in the Ham Shack. For the On Assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954777469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.